welcome and welcome back. It's been a while. I'd like to call the September 10th, 2013 City Council meeting to order. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Councilmember Francisco.
Here.
Hotchkiss.
Here.
House.
Here.
Murillo.
Here.
Rouse.
Here.
White.
Here.
Mayor Schneider.
Here. And item number 1, Mr. Armstrong. Or if you want to read the item.
Employee Recognition Service Award Pins.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong.
Yes, Madam Mayor, members of the council. As you know, every month we present service award pins to employees who are celebrating important anniversaries with the city. And this month we're recognizing 11 employees with 135 years of service to the city. And I'd like to read their names into the record, and then we have one employee here to receive his pin personally. So first, with 5 years, Tiffany Keller, who's a police officer. Rick Cyprus, who's also a police officer. Ashley Shu, who's a project engineer too in Public Works, and Hugo Miguel Perez, who's a custodian at the airport. With 10 years, Lynn Spark, who's a senior accountant in finance, Eric Just, who's our GIS coordinator in information systems, Rudy Saldana, who's a grounds maintenance worker both in Parks and Rec and at the golf course, and Patty Herrera, who's an office specialist too in Parks and Rec. With 20 years, Alan Cooper, who's a senior building inspector in community development. And with 25 years, James Ella, who's a police sergeant. And with 30 years, we have Louis Chiorn, who's here to receive his pin, and he's the laboratory supervisor, in Public Works down at El Estero.
You can come on up. Where is he? Come on. There you are. Great. There's your pin. Louis Chiorn began his career with the city in 1983 as an hourly employee at the city's El Estero wastewater treatment plant. He quickly proved his proficient laboratory analytical skills and was hired permanently on September 17, 1983 as a Laboratory Technician 1. In August 1986, he was promoted to Laboratory Tech 2 and promoted to Chemist in 1989, and his position was reclassified to Laboratory Supervisor in 1995. Louis leads a very important section of the city's water and wastewater utilities. Under his supervision and direction, the Water Resources Division Laboratory Section has successfully met important annual laboratory accreditation standards set by the federal government. Louis routinely makes important technical and staffing decisions that are critical to the laboratory section's operational success. Louis has received numerous commendations for over the years, including words of praise from the city administrator in 2008 for his personal efforts in overseeing important water analyses work associated with the city's emergency response to the T-Fire disaster. His good work had received acclaim from staff in many other departments of the city, as well as other water resources professionals. Over the past decade, Louis has served as a California Water Environment Association Tri-County Section board member, rising through the ranks and serving as board president in 2010. Louis is a naturalized U.S. citizen who was born in Cambodia and escaped political turmoil there in 1975. He loves cooking and provides fabulous barbecue meats for the El Estero celebratory events. He and his wife, Surath, are avid golfers, and he can be found at local golf courses on days when he's not overseeing important city laboratory work. Louis, it's my pleasure to honor you today for 30 years of service with the City of Santa Barbara. Congratulations on this achievement, and thank you.
So I couldn't leave this room without saying a few words. It won't be very long. So anyway, I so appreciate for honoring me for this year, 30 years employee service recognition, and for your kind expressions and for appreciation of my services. As I look at this recognition, I am reminded of many challenges I experienced during my past year, and of course today too, with all the support and leadership of the great team of the Public Works Department and its water resource divisions. They are back there. You are always there for advice and support. Thank you so much for coming today. Madam Mayor, thank you for your kind word, and that's encouraged me to do more of the great job there. Thank you so much.
Proclamation dedicating the John T. Ricard Airport Terminal.
Great. So I have copies here for the family, but who'd like to, so if you'd like to all come up, you're welcome to do that. I'll read it and then hand them out. Great. Now, Karen, would you like to come up also? Okay. Well, I'm reading it. You don't have to read it. So that's okay. So here we go. John T. Ricard will be honored on September 16, 2013, when the new Santa Barbara Municipal Airport Terminal will be named the John T. Ricard Terminal. And John T. Ricard left a legacy for future generations that protected Santa Barbara's natural beauty and secured Santa Barbara's economic base. And John T. Ricard was a native of Santa Barbara, proudly tracing his family lineage to Santa Barbara's founding fathers, the early Royal Presidio Comandantes. And John T. Ricard, after distinguished service in the Second World War, served as a city harbor commissioner and then was elected city attorney, followed by 2 terms as mayor from 1953 to 1957. And John T. Ricard was the primary architect of legislation to establish a marine sanctuary to protect the Santa Barbara coastline from oil development and annex the city's airport to allow for its continued growth and development. And John T. Ricard served as El Presidente of Old Spanish Days Fiesta from 1948 and 1949, revitalizing the city's largest civic celebration to refocus on local history and traditions. And John T. Ricard served as judge of the Superior Court from 1968 to 1982 and was highly respected for his firm and fair decisions. In 1969, John T. Ricard was honored as Santa Barbara's Man of the Year. So therefore, I, Helene Schneider, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Santa Barbara, California, do hereby proclaim the Santa Barbara Airport Terminal the John T. Ricard Terminal. And congratulations and thank you for all your work surrounding this effort. So thank you very much. Okay.
Sure. Just a few comments because there'll be plenty to be made on Monday. I'm Dennis Ricard, and I want to first of all thank the mayor and council for this great honor for our father. I want to particularly thank the Santa Barbara County Bar Association, particularly Mr. Max Staten and John Reyes for their leadership on this issue and bringing this to the public notice. I also want to thank Aaron Graffey, the historian, who was helped educate everyone about the history of Santa Barbara and my dad's legacy to that. I also want to thank, who's here today, former city councilman, Mr. Anthony Gunterman. I was a council member with my father and knew about all of this and was able to testify firsthand about the impact of the annexation. Also, former State Assemblyman Pedro Nava, I want to thank him very much for his support. Also, Marianne Partridge, editor-in-chief of The Independent. And finally, in the 2010 Goleta Mayor, Goleta Man of the Year, and 1986 El Presidente, Mr. Bill Redding of Goleta. On behalf of the whole family and everyone that's been our family and friends, they really want to thank you again, and we look forward to Monday and that celebration.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. The celebration will be 4 p.m. Monday at the new terminal and open to the public, so please come. So thank you very much. We look forward to it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any changes to the agenda?
No, there aren't, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Public comment. I have a couple of items, speaker slips here, and 2 minutes right there. So we'll start with Robert Burke, to be followed by Steve Reynolds.
Can I wait till the room clears? Thank you. Madam Mayor, council members. Previously, I said that 18 veterans suicided a day. That number has changed. The number now includes veterans and active duty personnel. 24 veterans and active duty personnel suicide a day. Sometimes I want to be one of them. What is warm at noon is cold at midnight. If this were a virus or food poisoning, the citizens would demand the brains and brawn of the government effect an immediate cure. We have an epidemic. This is a wealthy country. We have the resources. What is wanted is intention and direction, yours and yours. This is National Suicide Prevention Month. The Crisis and Suicide Hotline for Veterans is 1-800-273-8255. This number is on the Department of Veterans Affairs website on the Changing Pictures. They receive 1,500 calls a day. Sometimes I have been one of them. Not all wounds are visible. Not all wounds heal. Not one wounded ignored. Madam Mayor, council members.
Steve Reynolds will be followed by Matthew Kramer, and then the final speaker will be Anais Borg Marks.
Good afternoon. I recently announced I'm campaigning as a write-in candidate for mayor. Since that time, I've received several citations from the police department. These citations, I take these to the court, which they immediately drop. They're not worth the paper they're printed on, which is one of the reasons I've decided to run campaign. The biggest reason is because the police officer who wrote these tickets told me that he plans to write 1,000 more because the city of Santa Barbara doesn't want me here. And in return, the chief also uses these statistics as actual facts when they're mere allegations. As we all know, the chief fails to provide any of the information on the allegations regarding the police department. Allegations which I've made, the news press has made, Mr. Scholes has made, several other members that you all well know have made. So I am running, and I hope the public out there will vote for me. Thank you.
Matthew Kramer.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, fellow City Council members. This is the hat I wore to work this week, and I just wanted to introduce myself again. I'm Matthew Kramer. I'm running for council member. I'd like to replace one of these people up here or fill an open spot. I am an honest person. I used to be a USLA lifeguard here in Santa Barbara, California, which I hear that 18 of our firefighters are also USLA lifeguards. I enjoyed working for the city, and I've lived here for many years. When I was a teenager, I got my Eagle Scout here, and it's been a pleasure to live in this town, and I love it. And so that's why I feel like I can help improve it, or at least donate my skills and my talents to this wonderful place so that we can make it all a better place to live. And as this gentleman before me was talking, we do have some issues in this town, and I think our role is to represent people's issues and to get to the bottom of them and give them an answer for their grievance. And that's one of the things that I would do if I was a city council member. I was also, or I am the proud father of another generation of Santa Barbara residents. And I think that's my greatest gift to this town, is that there will be another Kramer living here for many more years to come. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Anais Borg Marks.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Anais Borg Marks, and I'm here representing the Anti-Defamation League of Santa Barbara Tri-Counties. I'm happy to be here announcing the kickoff of our 8th year of No Place for Hate in our schools. We're really lucky here in Santa Barbara to have the district support and all of our district schools participating, and we have to give special thanks to Superintendent David Cash and Coordinator of Special Projects and Communications, Barbara Kiani. This program, for those of you who don't know, it's an important step that schools take, proclaiming that it's going to take all necessary steps to ensure that every student is welcomed and feels accepted regardless of their race, sexual orientation, ethnicity, or religion. Through implementing 3 anti-bias and anti-bullying activities each year, schools are actively trying to change their climates, making standing up to bullies and biased behavior the norm. And I want to encourage all of our school sites to host a resolution of respect reading. And I'm going to read that right now because this resolution applies to all of us, not just our students. So it reads as follows. I pledge from this day forward to do my best to combat prejudice and to stop those who, because of hate or ignorance, would hurt anyone or violate their civil rights. I will try at all times to be aware of my own biases and seek to gain understanding of those who I perceive as different from myself. I will speak out against all forms of prejudice and discrimination. I will reach out to support those who are targets of hate. I will think about specific ways my community members can promote respect for people and create a prejudice-free zone. I firmly believe that one person can make a difference and that no person can be an innocent bystander when it comes to opposing hate. I recognize that respecting individual dignity, achieving equality, and promoting intergroup harmony are the responsibilities of all people. I commit myself to creating a community that is no place for hate. Thank you all for your time today.
Okay, thank you. That concludes public comment. Mr. House, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just had a question for the speaker, if I may.
You can come back up. Aeneas, come back up. We have a question from Councilmember House.
Real quick. A few years ago, the City of Santa Barbara Parks and Recreation Department and the library created a couple of programs that helped us qualify as a community of respect. I think we did that for a couple of years in a row. Is that continuing still?
Community of Respect is currently, they're retooling it, but No Place for Hate it's for schools.
That's
so,
in the schools.
Yeah, it's in the school district.
Maybe we could talk offline, but I think it'd be something we might want to look at again.
Absolutely, absolutely. Our World of Difference Institute offers training programs for everyone in the community, so we could definitely talk about training potential and possibility there.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Then we'll be in touch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes public comment. On to the consent calendar. You have some items to read there.
Item number 7, revisions to city's emergency management plan with the recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara adopting the January 2013 revisions to the city of Santa Barbara emergency management plan. Item number 8, resolution of acceptance for Mission Creek easement at 306 West Ortega Street. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara for acceptance of a permanent easement interest located at 306 West Ortega Street and consenting to the recordation of the Mission Creek exclusive easement deed in the official records, County of Santa Barbara. Item number 8, acquisition of real property for the Mason Street Bridge replacement project. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara to acquire and accept the real property interest located at 135 Kimberly Avenue, 16 West Mason Street, and 28 West Cabrillo Boulevard, relating to the Mason Street Bridge replacement project, and authorizing the Public Works Director to execute such agreements and documents as necessary for the acquisition and acceptance of said real property interests, subject to approval of the form of the agreement by the city attorney, and record said real property interests in the official records of the County of Santa Barbara. Item number 10, contract for construction for the Conejo Road Sewer Main Extension Acceptance of Public Utility Easement, including recommendation C, that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara for acceptance of a permanent easement interest located at 450 Conejo Road, and authorizing the Public Works Director to execute an easement purchase agreement in the amount of $5,600 and consenting to the recordation of the public utility easement deed in the official records, County of Santa Barbara. Item number 11, certification of administrative citation program unpaid fines list. Recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara certifying the amounts of administrative citations greater than 60 days past due for the purpose of either referral to a collection agency or filing a lien against the property.
Thank you. Without further objection, we'll waive further reading. We have a public comment speaker slip for item number 11. Does anyone else need to pull anything off the consent calendar? No. So item 11 was just read. It's the certification of administrative citation program unpaid fines list. So Bob McNall, you want to come on up?
Thank you. Good afternoon. You may not be aware, but this citation was a dumping permit citation, and the city of Santa Barbara issued a dump permit in 1970. It was a handshake permit to Frank Villalba Company, and involved 3 properties that were washed out by the city of Santa Barbara's failure of a drain system. And the permit was issued, like I said, on a handshake. They did things like that in those days. And the recent dumping of material, which triggered this violation, was done by a contractor in the area who has dumped material all over the neighborhood with impunity. And I've called the Public Works about him several times, and no violations have been issued at all. And I think this, we did do some remediation work on this 2 years after the violation was cited. It took 2 years of arguing back and forth and finding a contractor to do this work, which cost a tremendous amount of money. And the fine is $8,600. It was accumulated over a 2-year period, and I think the fine should be reduced or done away with. The Public Works verbally said that the fine would be rescinded if and when the permit was issued to do this remediation work, which it was, and then the remediation was not allowed, and I think it should be.
Okay. Thank you. And to be clear, it's at 425 Conejo Road, which is the first page of the attachment 1. It's the property you're referring to.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much for your comments.
What do we do from here?
Well, it's back to the council to decide whether to vote on this or not. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So, Mr. House.
Just a question for City Administrator. What would be the appropriate venue and the way for Mr. McNally to proceed, or maybe Mr. Wiley? What would be any remedy that he might have at this particular point? He's come to the council, obviously, expecting something that we could do, and I'm not certain that we're in a position.
Maybe Mr. Estrella could enlighten us up to this particular issue.
Yes, Madam Mayor, City Council, when an administrative citation is issued, those receiving citations have a due process. And part of that due process is they have a right to appeal within 10 days to an administrative hearing officer. If they choose to waive that appeal, in essence, what they're doing is waiving the due process that they're entitled to. If they move forward to an administrative hearing and they are not in agreement with the administrating officer's determination, from there, it does not go to City Council. Per ordinance, they have a right to file with the court system, in which it's handled in a legal process. That is what's currently on the table right now as city ordinance. In some cases, there are some special circumstances that come up. This appears to be a Public Works related matter. I would think due process was offered to the speaker or based on the situation. And so I think perhaps maybe even our city attorney might want to weigh in and give some legal opinion as to what might be the next steps based that we are at this step looking to lien properties and make some collections. So maybe if maybe Mr. Wiley might be able to weigh in, that might be a little bit more appropriate.
Mr. Wiley?
Madam Mayor, as Mr. Estrella indicated, there is an internal process to appeal these citations to a neutral city hearing officer. That's a process that usually takes about 30 days. After that decision, there is a 90-day period to take it to Superior Court, and this is all pursuant to a state law from the 1990s. The state law lays out a very simplified process for getting a hearing in Superior Court based on the file. And I presume that this citation didn't get to where it is, to the point where the city would be imposing a lien potentially. It has only gotten to that point because someone didn't use their legal remedies, didn't take advantage of their legal remedies to go to Superior Court. So at this point, the purpose of this hearing is to give the city the authority to place a lien against the property owner or to refer some of these to collection agencies. having said that, I think there would be no reason why we couldn't take written materials, written explanation from a property owner at this point in the city attorney's office and look at the entire thing, because I don't know that I'm pretty sure we don't have any specific knowledge of this particular case, but we're willing to make ourselves familiar with what the property owner is saying, look at the record and see if this is an appropriate situation. And I would add, just by way of explanation, this process, almost by definition, relates to real property owners. We don't know when someone, some business maybe in the middle of the night, or some individual may dump some property or may create some violation. We have no way to use the administrative citation process against a non-real property owner. So these citations are, there's a violation on your property, you own that property, you're responsible for either fixing that violation or explaining why we're wrong and it's not a violation. And you either fix it or explain why we're wrong and we get it cleared up, or there's going to be a lien on your property. But we have no way going against a business that may not own the property. So,
Madam Mayor, then I'll just comment real quickly, and I would very much appreciate that we could use the discretion that we have to take that another look, maybe accept some written commentary and take a look at that. It sounds like there's a basic misunderstanding or a difference of opinion about how the whole thing got started, and some other party may be interested, may have been participating, but we can't adjudicate it here. I just would appreciate that. So I don't know if something needs to change in the motion that would be before us today to be able to do that, but perhaps an assurance from you that you would take that into consideration would be sufficient.
I can give you that assurance, and I don't think anything needs to change in the motion, because really what this action is referring all of these to the city attorney's office for appropriate action.
So we could still vote as presented on this item, and then subsequent to that, you'll be working with this particular property owner on determining whether other steps need to be taken to figure out what's happening with this particular citation and process, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I want to be clear. In saying that, we're not accepting the burden of
Correct.
figuring this out. This property owner probably needs to explain and document what he's saying to us, because from what I'm hearing, it may be very old and it may be undocumented. Mm-hmm. And another point here, none of these 32, I think, cases get to this point without half a dozen warning letters and people ignoring those warning letters and not dealing with the problem. So,
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, does anyone want to either, you can have a motion for the entire consent calendar or vote on this item separately if you need to. What's the pleasure of the council?
Move the consent calendar.
Okay, moved and seconded the consent calendar. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that concludes the consent calendar. We encourage you to speak to our city attorney's office on this matter. We'll move on to item number 16.
Intend to award gas franchise to SoCal Gas, with recommendation that council adopt by reading of title only a resolution of the council of the city of Santa Barbara declaring its intent to grant a 30-year franchise with an option to extend for 10 additional years to Southern California Gas Company, and to set the time and place for a public hearing pursuant to Article 14 of the city charter.
Thank you. Ms. Schmidt, or I guess who's...
Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Council member. I am Christy Schmidt from the City Administrator's Office, and we're here today to talk about a potential gas franchise agreement with Southern California Gas Company. The city is currently operating under a 30-year franchise agreement, non-exclusive franchise agreement for natural gas with Southern California Gas Company, which allows Southern California Gas to place and maintain its pipes and appurtenances in the public right-of-way. That agreement expires in October of 2013. The city's franchise is regulated, this franchise with SoCal Gas is regulated through the city's charter, Article 14. But also, SoCal Gas is heavily regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission. So the Public Utilities Commission regulates everything from the rates that they charge to safety, transportation and distribution pipeline systems, the storage, procurement of gas, metering and billing. All of that is really tightly controlled by the state. And as such, there isn't as much for the city to negotiate an agreement as, say, a larger trash franchise or something like that. Safety is also heavily regulated by the Federal Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration. The negotiation of the franchise, we had a city team with myself from the city administrator's office. We had Scott Vincent, who's here from the city attorney's office, on the team. We had various members of the finance department give us advice, and Pat Kelly from Public Works to discuss issues about doing construction within the public right-of-way. We met regularly with the SoCal Gas team, which included Tim Mahoney, who's here from the SoCal Gas today, over a period of 7 months. And a lot of that was around getting to take a 30-year-old franchise agreement and really update it with modern franchise terms. The franchise terms include a scope of the agreement and the term. The initial term is for 30 years under the agreement. There is a provision for a 10-year extension for SoCal Gas to request a 10-year extension to the agreement, subject to the council's sole discretion to choose to deny that request. It also includes definitions, what the duties of Southern California Gas are under the franchise. It discusses fees. The SoCal Gas pays us a franchise fee and payment of fees, how that's to be paid to us. We added new requirements for insurance and indemnification, really bringing those up to what we would consider a modern standard for a franchise agreement. It talks about the right to audit and inspect SoCal Gas's records. It talks about the transfer of the franchise, collection of the utility users tax, and the location and installation of property in the public right-of-way. That means how they're going to submit plans and get permits, the manner and the quality of the road work, the cooperation to relocate pipes in the right-of-way as necessary if the city's doing street improvements, limits on road work during Fiesta, and the removal and abandonment of pipes in the right-of-way. As I mentioned, the SoCal Gas does pay the city a franchise fee for the use of the right-of-way. The franchise fee is the greater of 2% gross receipts from either the use or operation and possession of the franchise or SoCal Gas's sale, transmission, and distribution of gas within city limits. We're proposing for the new agreement that we retain the same structure for franchise fees. That increased. The prior agreement began with a 2%, 1% franchise fee structure, and that was increased in 2007, subject to a most favored nation clause. The 2-2 that we have now is the highest franchise fee formula in the SoCal Gas service area. There are others that have the 2-2, but there aren't others who have negotiated higher fees in decades. It does include a most favored nation clause, though. So if any municipality were to negotiate a higher franchise fee, there is a provision for the city to choose to also be subject to that higher franchise fee if it chooses to. And that would depend on also the SoCal Gas's ability to apply to have that franchise fee itemized on consumer bills in a manner similar to the triggering agency. But we do have that most favored nations clause in there. And the city also receives an in lieu fee that it receives under state law. That wasn't called out in the prior agreement, but we've added it to this current agreement. The estimated revenues for 2014 of $456,800 are already included in the fiscal year 2014 general fund adopted budget. We did arrange for quarterly payments to be made based on prior quarter receipts, and that was a big improvement for our finance department. Previously, they were receiving their payments based on the prior year's receipt, and there was a big true-up at the end of the year. And so this will allow our finance department to be working with more current numbers under the new agreement. And so they're happy about that. We do have a proposed minor change to the resolution. We want SoCalGas contacted us and said that one of the provisions we had in there was going to be very difficult for them to do based on a conversation with their tax folks. So we want to adjust the resolution exhibit to reflect that the final true-up for October and through December of each calendar year will be due on March 31st rather than February 25th of each year. And we'd add the language you see there to the resolution. The franchise adoption process includes council adopting a resolution of intent to award and declaring a notice of hearing with the franchise terms. The motion that would be today, and the motion should include approval of the adjustment to the true update. The city then must, according to the charter, publish the resolution in a local paper within 15 days of adoption. And then at least 20 days, but not more than 60 days following the resolution of intention, the city needs to hold a public hearing and then can introduce the ordinance to adopt the franchise. So we are proposing that hearing occur on October 1st, 2013. Following that, the agreement can be adopted and we can have a new effective date for the new franchise agreement. There are some issues that aren't addressed in the franchise, but we will be having discussions with SoCalGas over the next several years about. SoCalGas has been granted permission from the California Public Utilities Commission to install advanced metering infrastructure in California. So some of the things we will be discussing with them over the next several years include the placement and installation of their data receiver poles in the public rights-of-way potentially. We'll be talking to them about the possibility of having them use city property to place some of those poles if it works for both parties. And then also potentially possible transmission of city water meter data via SoCalGas's infrastructure. That might be a potential place for us to coordinate in the future. That's not part of this franchise agreement, but it may be part of future discussions between us and SoCalGas. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Mr. Vinson is here today, too, to answer questions.
Thank you. Questions? And then Mr. Mahoney is also here for public comment. But Mr. Rouse?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate the gas company on not using the word smart meter when they came to do their AMI project. That was a wise choice, I think. But as you mentioned, Ms. Schmidt, about the work process, we've had many discussions, from the downtown organization with the Public Works regarding work in the downtown corridor that's not emergency, but is scheduled. And there were time limitations. You mentioned Fiesta, but that was the only exclusion you seem to have. Are there other understandings? Because oftentimes, I wish Mr. Kelly were here to answer this, because Public Works will kind of throw up their hands when it comes to utilities, since those things are scheduled normally outside of the Public Works process, although I think they do need to pull permits to do some of this work. So I would like to maybe have you address, or maybe Mr. Mahoney can address, the understanding about non-emergency scheduled work being performed in certain business areas during certain hours.
There are no restrictions under the agreement itself related to that, but SoCalGas, and by all accounts, both from SoCalGas and the Public Works Department, has a very good working relationship with the Public Works Department around work within the rights-of-way. So I'm not aware of any particular agreements they have with regard to that. But I am aware that they work together very well, and SoCalGas is very receptive to requests from Public Works. So I don't think that it would be a problem.
And this franchise agreement does not give them the right to just work in the public right away. They still have to go in and work with Public Works and get a permit to operate. And I do know, for example, every year we have a holiday exclusion as well, where we don't allow work in the downtown area during the holidays. So they still work with us, get permits, and they coordinate the work, and they're required to do that under this franchise and under our normal procedures.
Well, admittedly, most of my experience comes with Edison, not the gas company, but there have been times when the discussions I've had with the field people in Public Works will go, what can we do as the utilities? I go, I thought they were our streets. And as I read this document and listen to your testimony, I would say, yes, those in fact are our streets that we control, and we have an agreement with them to use. So I would think that we would have some kind of a working understanding about our policies in general.
And we do have those, and I think there have been issues with the utilities, especially Edison, but in the past, sometimes with the gas company. But I think over the years, we've developed a much closer relationships in how they schedule their work, and I mean, they don't want to create those inconveniences either. And I think it's working pretty well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just, you mentioned the potential dovetailing with the water system and the potential for using this infrastructure for water meters. Is there anything that would be useful at this point in this agreement? I would think that it could be anyway, that this would be an opportunity to lay out the beginnings of that groundwork, or could you talk to that a little bit?
You know, it was something that was discussed in SoCalGas's application to the CPUC, that they might coordinate with water agencies in that respect. But right now, I believe their process is really in the beginning stages, and at this point, they would need to, in order to make commitment, they're not far enough along to make commitments with regard to carrying other signals on their infrastructure at this point, because they just haven't put the infrastructure into place yet.
So would that be a charge for that? Could you talk about what that potential would be there?
Yes, potentially they would be able to charge us to use their infrastructure to send data, and that would be subject of a separate agreement between us.
And Mr. Hotchkiss?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Do we know in advance all the work they plan to do? Maybe that's a Mr. Armstrong question.
My understanding is they have project planners that do that project out their work, and they sit down with our public works staff and they kind of plot out what they're planning, and they, but we don't know, like right now, I'm not sure how far out we know how their work is. They do capital planning just like we do, and then they sit down with our staff and then they coordinate what's a good time to do it. And we look at things like, will we be paving a street, or we be doing street maintenance, and then we try and coordinate their work. So obviously we don't want them to come in and dig up our streets right after we've just done a slurry job. Right. And that's the kind of coordination that goes on.
That's sort of what I was thinking of. Also, inadvertently having two projects side by side that create real chaos in a particular area. So, I mean, we attempt to avoid that, I would hope.
Yeah, and of course the challenge is when you have emergency repairs that are required, and then you just can't plan for those.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Mahoney?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Tim Mahoney with SoCalGas, and here to support, of course, the 30-year franchise agreement that staff has put on the screen for us today. Lots of good things in there. Franchise is kind of separate than the issues you've brought up, and those are really good. We've had a very good working relationship with the city over these last 30 years, and our goal is to continue that. I think Santa Barbara is probably one of the model cities, and you have a very good utility coordinating committee here that meets on a regular basis, and all the utilities go in there, and that's when they discuss what can be done, where it's going to happen, who's doing big jobs. We've coordinated with the city on several large projects, the Cabrillo Bridge that's been kind of up and down in the planning process. So it's a good system. We do go in, pull encroachment permits continually for any work that we do in the street. Obviously, if it's an emergency, and that's usually what happens, there'll be a possible third-party contractor hits a gas line when they're digging, and you have gas to atmosphere, and of course it's a 911 type of call, and we go in and get a permit after the fact, but we're out there making sure the public is safe at the very beginning. So those are the only type of instances where we don't go and get a large encroachment permit or other types with the traffic control and those sorts of things. So it works out pretty well that way. It's a matter of good communication. I think we've got that with the city. Like I said, I've gone to other cities and counties and said, you guys ought to put in place the same utility coordinating type of committee that the city of Santa Barbara has, because it's a very effective tool and it works really well in the scheduling of things. And we're very sensitive, of course. We don't want to disturb any of our customers. I mean, if it's a good customer and we're out in front there digging, we want to make sure that we're doing it at the right time and the right place, so we're not disrupting, a person that is a customer that pays for the gas. So it works out. But getting back to the franchise, all that's kind of separate. You try and keep this as kind of a clean and codify just business relationships, and then you have the day-to-day atmosphere of the working folks. One of the things that we do is we guarantee our street cuts for life. So if my company made a street excavation 10 years ago in the city of Santa Barbara and it fails, we will go out and fix it immediately. And now that is not in the franchise, but that is just something that is a policy between city and utility.
Great. Mr. House has a question for you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mahoney. Just two things. One, are there parts of our town that are not yet served by your company, and do you have plans to reach into those areas at this point? I mean, have you gotten every street and every place in town?
I want to say yes. I think we have gas service to every neighborhood in the city of Santa Barbara. There are some homes that are all electric, so they can elect to get gas service.
I'm imagining up in the foothills there might be some places that have propane or something, but pretty much everywhere.
I don't think so. Okay. It brings to mind the last major fire we had, the Jesucita. We were up there working with the fire department in those homes up there, turning off gas to make it safe to go in there. So the pipes go up pretty far into the foothills.
Well, the second question, which is sort of related, and that has to do with the age of the infrastructure and the maintenance of effort side of this equation. And, where we're always struggling to keep up with our water system and our wastewater system, and for your system, how are you maintaining those pipes, and how much work do you have to do to be able to keep that system current and modern and not liable to be broken?
Really good question, and let me break it into two parts. There's two types of pipes. You've got the transmission pipes, which are the high-pressure, large pipes, and then you've got the distribution pipes that come to your house and my house. Those are small, anywhere from 4-inch pipes down to 1-inch pipes. They're not really a problem per se. If they get hit by a backhoe, the gas goes to atmosphere, there's not a problem. So we do replace the 4- and the 6-inch street mains, which all the businesses and the homes tee off of, on a basis built upon our inspection of the pipe. So we do pipe inspection with a 6-inch or a 4-inch by sniffing above ground, leak detection, those sorts of things. Pretty effective and pretty safe. Now, transfer over to the larger pipes, and you're talking now about a high-pressure transmission line, which, of course, can be a more hazardous situation. So what we do to inspect the pipe is every 5 to 7 years, we will run what's called a SMART tool, a pipeline inspection gauge, PIG, a SMART PIG, through the line. What this is, it's a multi-million-dollar device that's really sensitive. It goes through the pipe, high pressure to low pressure, so we run about a 20-mile section of pipe at a time, launcher site, receiver site. The SMART tool goes into the pipe, and then it literally sends out a sonar wave, if you will. It bounces off the interior of the pipe and comes back and makes, if you can imagine this, like a lie detector graph going back and forth. If it hits any anomaly, an anomaly could be a crack, a weld, or even a loss of pipe wrap on the outside of the pipe, or a tree that root has gotten on the outside of the pipe. It's that sensitive. So when we find that, we stop the SMART tool, and we back it back and forth till we find out where it is on this 20-mile stretch. And then if we, what we'll do is we'll actually dig down and find out why this anomaly is occurring. So that happens all the time with the larger pipes. The other thing that we do is a hydro test, where again, we'll take a section of pipe and we'll fill it with water and we'll pressurize it up to the extent that the pipe has been engineered for. My company mostly engineers the pipes for, say, 1,500 pounds per square inch. We only operate at half that. We don't need that total, so we're always underneath the engineered spec. But we'll take that water pressure up in a hydro test to make sure that that line is safe.
Oh, great. Thanks for the explanation. It's more than I bargained for.
Yeah, I didn't want to go long, but I didn't want to cut it short.
No, it's important for the public to hear this, and I appreciate that. And I'm going to look to staff for a second here. We're confident, obviously, with your recommendation that this agreement has their maintenance of effort built into it. I mean, it would seem like if we're going to make a 30-year agreement, we would also be making certain that there's some covenant or something that they keep up their system, and I'm sure they would anyway. But it seems like the agreement would say something like that, and perhaps Mr. Vincent can help us with that.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember House, as was mentioned in Ms. Schmidt's presentation, the California Public Utilities Commission has detailed specifications for the construction and maintenance of the gas pipelines. They fully have regulated the construction specifications and the maintenance obligations, as well as the repair obligations of their regulated utilities. And so they've preempted the city as far as our duplicative or supplemental regulation of those areas.
All right, thank you. Just, Madam Mayor, so you know why I asked all those questions, and we're facing infrastructure deficits and, major issue of trying to maintain things on the public side of this, and to have the private side be that well regulated is really appreciated. Thank you.
Ms. Murillo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question is to Ms. Schmidt. So why wouldn't we negotiate for a higher franchise fee, say 3% and 3%?
We could ask for that, but I think a lot of other agencies also have these most favored nation clauses in their agreements. And so, the implications of SoCal Gas agreeing with one city to do something like that would be far beyond just reaching a deal with the city of Santa Barbara. But I'm not aware that as a charter city, we're limited in what we could potentially try to negotiate. The general law cities that are out there are limited by state law to a 2-1 franchise fee formula. But as a charter city, we could try to pursue a higher, but it's not likely that we'd get it.
Okay. I mean, the way the report reads, it seems like someone has to break through and get to 3%, and then everybody else can start negotiating. But the other thing that I seem to have read in there is that the gas company would just pass the fee on to the customer.
That's correct.
Okay.
In recent years, the PUC has been granting gas companies the ability to itemize any franchise fee over that 2-1 formula on the bottom of the bills of just the agency that's imposing the fee.
I like the idea of more money coming into the general fund, so I'm just asking the question. In terms of smart meters, I mean, if smart meters are the way to go from analog to digital, I can only encourage that, and for the gas company to come into the digital age. And then to Councilmember House, I have lived in an illegal unit that was serviced with propane. So just for your information, there are housing, depending on the housing you live in Santa Barbara, you don't always get serviced by the gas company. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any other questions or comments or a motion? And this is just basically to set could you put up the special language, additional language for the motion? I think it was the second to last slide you had. Oh, okay, there you go. Okay. Mr. White?
Well, I move that, Madam Mayor.
Move that. So it's the staff recommendation, including the language up on the board, right?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we'll see you back here in October. Thank you very much. Okay, item number 17.
Neighborhood Health Fair and Family Fun Day.
Great. Mr. Alvarado.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, City Council members. I'm here to report on the second annual Neighborhood Health Day and Neighborhood Health Fair and Family Fun Day. I'd want to talk a little bit about the history of the event and why are we doing this. You might recall that there was an initiative by Thrive Westside that targeted residents, underserved residents, to kind of identify what the needs were. And there was a summit held in January of 2012 where residents really spoke out around the need for access for health services. And with that, also education to kind of improve the quality of life for the underserved, specifically was targeting that area. And so with that, through the leadership of the mayor's office and First District Supervisor Carbajal, we were able to pull together some of the local partners, City of Santa Barbara, obviously the County of Santa Barbara, County Public Health, health linkages, and partners in education. We all kind of came together to produce the event that we had last year at Bonet Park. Roughly, it was about a year ago. And really what we're trying to address are some of the chronic issues that we see around family health, obesity, cancer, and diabetes. And so what we were able to do last year, and I did, you might see a handout that I provided for you in front of you, and it is just some brief summaries on some of the outcomes that we had from the event, and specifically we were able to screen roughly 452 residents over at Bonet Park last year. And so with that, it was a great event, and we just decided, because of the fact that we were able to generate so much interest from the community, that we wanted to shift our focus geographically over towards the east side this year. And so this year we are going to be holding it this Saturday at Santa Barbara Junior High on the athletic field and in the cafeteria from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And so what you'll see there is, once again, is the free medical screenings. About 60 community service information booths will be on hand. Recreational activities provided by Parks and Recreation. Live music, you'll have the Martinez Brothers with Ruben Estrada. You'll have Mariachi Las Olas from UCSB will performing. And you'll also have Danza Aztlan from Cal State University Northridge is coming into town to provide dance, folklorico dance. And just a little plug, Diana Cabral, who's a local resident from Santa Barbara, is now the director there at CSUN. And so we kept that connection to bring Diana in town for this particular event. We're also in partnership with the school district, and this year the school district obviously providing the space as well as providing the lunches this year. And we're going to be doing free lunches from their nutrition services out of their food trucks. Last year we did food from El Serape with Raul Gil. And this year we stepped up with the school's nutrition program. As you might know, also over the summer, we were serving about 900 kids a day in our summer programs with food nutrition through the trucks, and we just thought, why don't we just continue serving the community through these trucks? And so we get a really good bang for our buck on providing the meals. Really also, too, another thing that I wanted to mention also is our funding, and how do we fund this particular endeavor? Because if you look at the cash that it takes to produce this event, because we do give away laptops and bicycles, and how do we pay for all these different amenities that we're producing? Roughly, it's about a $22,000 cash fundraising campaign that we have, and then with all the in-kind, with all the volunteers, staff, we're looking at about a $50,000 program that we're producing in one day through this partnership. And so some of our key funders that are really helping us produce this event is the Santa Barbara Community Foundation, the Orfalea Foundation, Santa Barbara Rotary, the Hutton Parker Foundation, Union Bank, CenCal, Cottage Hospital, Our Park Foundation, Santa Barbara City County Fire Association stepped up, and also Marburg is also a big partner of ours because they do help us with our trash. And also, too, Weiss Drive helps us print the T-shirts for the event for the volunteers. And last but not least, but the United Way is also on board with us in producing this event. So it's a really cool thing that we're doing out there. And really what we're trying to do is just have residents understand that there is access to medical services, and it doesn't have to be expensive just to get your blood checked, just to see where you're at with your sugar levels and where you are with your other vital organs. And it's really important for families to start to understand really what it is to stay healthy and active and to improve their quality of life or to sustain their quality of life. We just have a few slides from last year's event that our administrative assistant that I failed to introduce in the beginning of this presentation, Ms. Jessica Martinez, who's our administrative assistant with Neighborhood and Outreach Services. And also, too, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize Lisa Valencia from 1st District Carvajal's office is with us also. So other than that, I just wanted to come and give you guys a brief overview of what we're doing. This is a great event. We encourage everybody to come out. It starts at 10 a.m. On Saturday. You're welcome to come and say a few words and welcome the group. And you can anticipate to see anywhere from 600 to 800 people at Santa Barbara Junior High this Saturday. We do a very robust marketing campaign through radio, distribution through the schools. We put all the flyers in the Thursday folders. As you can see, they're Spanish, English. We distribute all along the Milpas corridor. We get it on City 18. We use as many resources as we can to ensure that the public is aware of this vital event. So with that said, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you. I just heard one of the Spanish language radio ads you just forwarded over. So it was a lot of information in 30 seconds, but that's,
yes.
saying a lot. So I thought we'll reach out to a lot of families. I just want to point out, first off, to really thank you being the point person in the city, Mr. Alvarado, and so many people around the city, and also in particular, Lisa Valencia Charat from Supervisor Carvajal's office, especially from last year and moving over to this year. Really, you two are the glue that's holding all this together with so many different partners. And from last year, the outcomes, which was great to have this here just to put out there. Last year, 452 individuals had health screenings. 222 families completed health information surveys. 792 individuals had a healthy meal served to them. And as I remember, County Public Health mentioned, I think about 24 individuals who found out at that event that they had diabetes. And since then, and just this past year, has received treatment and they are no longer diabetic. And it was because they went to the fair that they just didn't have the services. For whatever reason, they didn't get tested, and now they did, and now they're no longer diabetic. Did you want to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say that was one of the outcomes, is that people were getting referrals on site and seeing the doctors the next week immediately and getting meds for those type of ailments. Yes.
Yeah, so it's really very exciting. Mr. Hotchkiss.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It sort of covers what I was going to ask, which is there was a photo of a little girl getting her teeth checked. So what happens if you see, oh boy, you got a cavity here? What's the follow-up? How does that?
The referrals process for that is that there are doctors that are doing this, and so they'll make appointments for these children or adults to go in and see them. They work on a scale in terms of getting the payment. There might be an insurance coverage of some sort or another. So it's really just an immediate response to whatever's going on with the patient.
That's great. And the same with the diabetes?
Yeah, absolutely. They do they poke right there on the spot, and they check those blood levels, and they say, you know what, you need to come in and get your meds. So
I had no idea how devastating diabetes could be at such a young age, and then a friend's son has had it since 6, just died from it. So it's remarkable if you can stop that early on.
I hate to share an experience I had this morning with you. I was over at one of our neighborhood markets this morning, early at 7:30, and there was a group of children buying that purple soda water or whatever as they were on their way to school. And I just thought to myself, and there was an adult there, and I just thought to myself, see, this is what we need to stop, or these type of behaviors of people not feeding their children these type of, goods because they're not any good for a child.
Mr. Rouse.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Alvarado, you mentioned the budget for this event, and then you also mentioned the meal program you did over the summertime, where you, as I recall, was like 900 meals a day. Is that the similar collaboration in terms of the funding, or what is the funding source for that?
Okay, that funding source for the summer is through the federal program, where the federal government provides the funding for the school to feed children over the summer. Specifically, anybody who comes to the truck can be fed if you're under the age of 18. There's no income levels that are checked. So we do know that there's a lot of children during the school year who are on free and reduced lunch who don't necessarily get a meal over the summertime. Parents go to work or they're out playing around. So it was very successful, and we were really excited. And as you guys might know, that we were doing music also too. We were doing concerts. That's why we keep the theme of music and culture and everything going, because we want to ensure that we're being as holistic and comprehensive as possible in addressing family needs.
Thank you.
Mr. House?
I just wanted to just really commend you and your team for the work that you're doing and the way that you're doing it. I mean, the fact that it is such a exciting, fun kind of environment that people want to come to, and then the services are available, and all these other agencies, I guess, are participating as well. So you get a huge and broad scope of services available. I just want to call attention. We did something earlier today on the consent calendar, which was the agreements for after-school recreation programs. And I see Ms. Hannah out here and Ms. Rapp, and we probably should have called that off consent just to acknowledge the heck out of it. And these are both cooperative efforts with the school districts. And there's a story here for anybody in the media who'd like to pick it up, or if we want to write the feature article or something. But this cooperative effort is really important. And I think that we need to find some way to really toot the horn. Obviously, you're doing it through the media for getting people to come and participate. But I think the public at large needs to recognize the collaborative effort that's going on from both sides of this. And I think neighborhood clinics and others are going to be, they're part of the whole mix. So one last thing, really, music, dancing. Are you going to bring your guitar, Mark?
No, I
Dude, you
take a
can't
day
go
off.
there
I
without
take a day off on that day.
Oh, man, it's like you do so well. It's
Thank
just,
you.
But really, just wanted to take the moment at the mic to say thank you very much. Thanks for your good work.
No, thank you. And you took the words out of my mouth. I did want to recognize the Parks and Rec management, Sarah Hanna and Nancy Rapp, because they do provide us with the leadership to do this and to open our doors and to demonstrate that we are collaboratively based, department. And we can't get things done unless we really do that, because the resources are lean. And so the only way we're going to get stuff done and see impact is by reaching out to other community partners. So
That right there, that's important. That reaching out, that collaborative spirit is taking our limited resources at the city and magnifying it, and by the numbers who participate and all the rest. Thank you very much.
Okay, well, we hope to see everyone there on Saturday, and we'll be pretty busy. It'll be very exciting. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. So no motion needed. We'll move on to council-member committee assignment reports. Ms. Murillo.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Youth Council met yesterday, and they're planning a council and mayor candidates forum. So those of you who are in election season right now, keep an eye out for that. And the Youth Council will be at the health fair we were just discussing, and they're also participating in the Day of Caring. The recruitment period is open for advisory boards, and that includes the Youth Council, so that was something else that they talked about. So that would be something I throw out to the public if you want to be of service to the city of Santa Barbara. We have several boards and commissions, and we'll be taking applications pretty soon. I think the deadline is October 8th, so you have a few weeks to get that together. In terms of my liaisonship to the MTD board, there is good news that there is some relief on that federal transportation dollars that were being held up on a labor issue. I think the money's coming through, the $4.6 million, even though the solution seems to be sort of on a temporary basis. But we'll take it because there is some relief. There will not be cuts to the MTD bus service. Thank you, Governor Brown.
Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended the Water Commission meeting yesterday, where we have an interesting year here, where we're only 2 years out from Cachuma spilling, but they've been 2 very dramatic years of drought. And so we're, on the one hand, there's a sort of sense of we've got a long-term plan, we're in good shape, but on the other, Cachuma is dropping like a stone because an awful lot of water, that's sort of a backlog of downstream water rights are being exercised right now, so that we're really seeing Cachuma drop substantially. And I know I'm getting some comments from constituents that, gosh, we're having one of the driest years on record, if not the driest year. The water year's a funny year. It goes till October 1st is the end of the water year. So I know, as I say, I'm getting comments of expressing nervousness about our water supply situation. We do have a good plan in place, but it still is a plan with that's. You want to make sure it's working right, so this sort of re-examination is in place. I would ask that this council receive and that the community receive a little report at the end of the water year on our situation. And there's great graphics and statistical information. And also this dramatic change from having a spilling reservoir to a Syria to 2 years of drought. I think it's the tone of where we are and when might we anticipate going into more of a conserving mode if we do have another year of drought would be a good topic for just a little update here and getting the information out to our residents and our citizens. So it's just, there's a little bit of a nervousness there where I really appreciate all the good work that's gone on over the decades, but I think that would be helpful for our community. And the talk in the Water Commission meeting was about how do you set that? How do you get the Goldilocks tone there of not being too scared because then people will shut down too much and don't buy enough water, but also are not being too relaxed either. So
good ideas.
Apologies for going on so long, but it's obviously one of our critical resources.
Well, and especially since it usually rains by the time we put something on the agenda about water supply, maybe that could help.
If that happens, then that's a good deal.
Yeah.
And then secondly, Madam Mayor, Newshawk had it and a couple of other sources, but I wanted to give a shout out to John Jostis, who is scheduled to be awarded the Sharon Pickett Award for Environmental Protection Through Conflict Resolution. This is a national award, and it recognizes significant and important contributions to environmental protection. And of course, Mr. Jostis' work has been in environmental mediation through his career. This was basically a Lifetime Achievement Award by the National Association of Conflict Resolution.
Great. Okay, any other reports? Okay, you have some closed sessions to read.
Conference with real property negotiators, conference with labor negotiator, and conference with real property negotiators.
Okay, we'll adjourn from closed session. Thank you very much.